Day, grade 9 learners, and welcome to today's Natural Sciences lesson. My name is Sianda Madlala, and this lesson is proudly brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education. Right, we are still on our term 4, exploring the planet Earth and beyond knowledge area. So in today's topic, we'll be looking at the greenhouse effect, as well as our subtopic will be the greenhouse effect. So let's quickly look at our lesson objectives to see what we need to achieve by the end of the lesson. So when this lesson ends, we should be able to explain that the greenhouse effect is a natural phenomenon and it warms the atmosphere sufficiently to sustain life. Not only that, we need to also be able to explain that greenhouse gases, they trap the ultraviolet radiation, which then warms the air closest to the surface of the earth. Also, we need to be able to list the common greenhouse gases as carbon dioxide, water vapor, and methane. Also, we need to be able to explain that an increase in greenhouse gases leads to global warming. And as well as we need to explain that global warming is an increase in the average temperatures of the atmosphere. And as well as we need to be able to list and discuss the negative impacts of global warming. Then also, we need to be able to discuss ways of reducing global warming. And all this information is found under the CAPS document on page 82. Now let's move on to our pre-knowledge and let's see what we have covered before, which lays a foundation to today's topic. So in grade 4, we started talking about the earth and the sun, right? Mentioning the relationship between the earth and the sun, right? So it lays a foundation to today's topic because also the greenhouse effect has to do with the relationship between the earth and the sun. Then in grade 9, which is the very same grade that we are in now, we discussed the atmosphere and the layers of the atmosphere. Right, now let's move on to our baseline activity to test our knowledge so far, right? To check how far we understand in as far as these topics are concerned. The number 1 says, give the name of the layer of the atmosphere the following characteristics referred to. A, contains the ozone layer. B, has the highest temperature. C, temperature decreases with altitude. Then number 2, how does the density of the atmosphere change with altitude, right? So I'm going to give you 4 minutes to complete this activity. And before that, please remember our WhatsApp interactive number that you can send in your answers to, your comments or any questions regarding this lesson, right? It is 079 578 2908. Now let's meet again after 4 minutes. Welcome back, grade 9s. Now we are going to look at the solutions together, right? Please do not forget to send in your answers on our WhatsApp number. Any questions and any comments are allowed also on our WhatsApp number, which is 079 578 So let's go through the questions again. Number one was saying, give the name of the layer of the atmosphere the following characteristics refer to. A, contains the ozone layer. B, has the highest temperatures. Then C, decreases with altitude. And number two, how does the density of the atmosphere change with altitude, right? So the answer for number one, A, it is the stratosphere, right? The stratosphere contains the ozone layer. Then B, it is the thermosphere, right? Then C, it is the troposphere and as well as the mesosphere. Then number two, it decreases, right? Density decreases with altitude, right? The higher you go, the less dense it becomes, right? So that is all for our baseline activity. And if you need to copy down the corrections, let me give you a quick minute to do so. Then after that, we shall proceed with our lesson. Welcome back again, grade 9s. I hope you had enough time to copy down your corrections. Now let's move on with our lesson. And also we need to look at the important terms that are associated with this lesson, right? Firstly, we have greenhouse. So what is a greenhouse? A greenhouse is a structure that is made up of glass in which plants are grown, right? A structure made up of glass in which plants are grown. Then we have greenhouse effect. And greenhouse effect is a warming effect that is caused by the trapping of energy in the atmosphere, right? Greenhouse effect, a warming effect, right? Warming effect caused by the trapping of energy in the atmosphere. Then we have greenhouse gases. These are gases that absorbs the Earth's outgoing energy, trapping it in the atmosphere. Then we have global warming, which is an increase in the average temperature of the atmosphere. We also have fossil fuels, which are coal, oil, and gas made from the remains of plants and animals that lived a long time ago. Then we have what? Climate change, which is the long-term changes in the Earth's atmosphere and precipitation patterns. We also have mass extinctions, which is the extinction of one or more species in a short period of time. Then we have extinct, which means what? When a species dies out completely, right? So now let's start off by mentioning greenhouse effect, right? Because it is our main topic for today. So now greenhouse effect. Before we talk deeply about greenhouse effect, right? I want us to take it to the greenhouses that we witness in our agricultural spaces, right? So a greenhouse now is a structure that is made up of glass in which plants are grown, right? So as you move around in agricultural sectors, we see structures like these, right? We often ask ourselves, what is this structure for, right? So this structure is called a greenhouse, right? It is made up of glass, and this is where plants are grown, right? But why specifically glass, right? That should be our main question. Why specifically glass, right? So this is a greenhouse, and this is where plants are grown, right? So the glass now, it is because it allows what? The sun's energy to pass through, as it is what? It is transparent. It allows the sun's energy to pass through and enter the greenhouse, and as well as enter the plants, so that they are able to photosynthesize, right? But now this glass specifically, it does not allow energy out again, right? What does that mean now? What happens inside this greenhouse? It means what? We're going to experience more and more warmth, right? So the energy becomes trapped inside the glass house, and as the result, the air inside the greenhouse is usually warmer than the air outside the greenhouse, right? So what happens here? This greenhouse now, it allows all the sun's energy to enter it, and also to nurture the plants, right? Then it doesn't allow the energy out again, keeping what? The temperature levels warm inside it. Are we together? So now the greenhouse has a warming effect on the air, right? As it keeps the air inside it warmer and warmer as compared to the air outside it. Right. So now, on Earth now, right? Our planet Earth now, since we have a clue of how a greenhouse works, right? On Earth now, we have our own natural greenhouse effect, right? It is a greenhouse effect, meaning what? We have a warming effect as well, right? It happens as the one in the greenhouse. We have some energy entering our Earth, and also some energy not being lost from our Earth, right? So we have a natural greenhouse effect also on planet Earth, right? So this natural greenhouse effect, it warms the atmosphere sufficiently to sustain life. When we are saying to sustain life, it means what? To keep us living and surviving also throughout the different weathers. Are we together? So without the greenhouse effect, the atmosphere would be so cold that nothing could survive in it, right? So it is a warming effect that helps us to sustain life, right? So how does it sustain life now? There are certain gases that are found in the Earth's atmosphere, right? So these gases, they are responsible for our greenhouse effect. And such gases, they are called the greenhouse gases, right? They are called the greenhouse gases. These gases now are the ones that allow what? This energy not to pass out to space, or to keep the energy around the Earth's atmosphere, so that we are able to keep warm and also to sustain life, right? So such gases, for example, they are carbon dioxide, water vapor, and as well as methane, right? These are such gases that now they allow or enable the greenhouse effect, right? So that we do not lose too much heat, right? So this is our atmosphere. These gases now, remember, they are found in abundance where? All over our atmosphere, right? To mention some, carbon dioxide and also methane, right? They are all found around the atmosphere, and they enable our greenhouse effect, keeping us warmer and warmer, right? So meaning what? They allow the sun's UV rays to pass through, but the energy radiated back from the earth towards the atmosphere is not lost out to space because of these greenhouse gases. Now, the greenhouse effect on Earth happens as follows now, right? We are going to allude as to what happens during what? The greenhouse effect. So as we have the sun and the earth, right? Between the sun and the earth, there is a relationship between the two what? Celestial bodies, right? So the energy from the sun now, it passes through the atmosphere and warms the surface of the earth, right? as we noticed during the day, there is what? Insulation from the sun, right? The energy from the sun or the sun's UV rays, they pass through the atmosphere and warm the surface of the earth. Are we together? Then now, later during terrestrial radiation, the warmed earth now, it radiates the energy back into the atmosphere, right? As it radiates the energy back into the atmosphere, what do we have in the atmosphere? We have these greenhouse gases, right? So these greenhouse gases, they absorb most of this energy, right? They absorb most of this energy and also warming the atmosphere closest to the Earth's surface, right? So without these greenhouse gases, it means what? Most of the energy would pass out to space and the atmosphere would be much colder, right? So hence I said that the greenhouse effect is there to maintain what? Warmth around the atmosphere and our planet Earth. Are we together? So what happens here? The energy from the sun passes through the atmosphere, right? Warming the surface of the earth. Then later on, the earth radiates the energy back into the atmosphere. As the energy is radiated back into the atmosphere, it reaches the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The greenhouse gases are capable now of absorbing most of this energy to keep us warm, right? And remember, without these gases, it means what? Their energy would pass out to space and the atmosphere would be much colder, right? So the gases of the atmosphere now are similar to the glass of the greenhouse, right? Because they trap energy, making the air warmer than it would otherwise be, right? They are there to trap the energy to keep us warm and to maintain what? Warm levels of temperature. So here I have two diagrams to explain what we're talking about here, right? Here we have the sun and we have what? Earth, right? As we said now, the sun's radiation now, it hits what? The Earth's atmosphere and as well as the Earth's surface, right? Warming up the Earth's surface as the radiation is passing through the atmosphere. Then later on, the energy is radiated back into our atmosphere, right? So this round layer here is our atmosphere. Are we together? Then the energy now is trapped inside the atmosphere and we're able to maintain some levels of warmth, right? So this diagram here is much clearer than the first one, right? Here we have our sun and we have Earth here. Are we together? We have planet Earth here, right? So as you can see now, the sun's UV rays are entering and passing through the atmosphere, right? This white layer here is our atmosphere. It is passing through the atmosphere. As it passes through the atmosphere, what happens? It warms up the Earth's surface and the atmosphere altogether, right? Then later on during terrestrial radiation now, right? The energy is radiated back from Earth and into the atmosphere. As it reaches the atmosphere, now look at that energy bouncing back and remaining on the atmosphere and Earth. What happens now? Our atmosphere and the Earth remains warm, right? Most of the energy is trapped within the atmosphere and as well as our planet Earth, right? This is due to what? The greenhouse gases that are found in this atmosphere, right? Greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, such as methane, right? Such as water vapor as well, right? They sustain life in this manner in order for us to avoid extremely cold temperatures and to not lose much energy to space. Right. So now let's move on and get to activity one, right? To test how far we understand now. Number one says define greenhouse effect. The number two says explain how the greenhouse effect occurs, right? So I'm going to give you 4 minutes for this activity. Then after that, we shall mark together. Welcome back, grade 9s. We are going to look at the solutions together now for activity 1. Number 1 says define greenhouse effect. So how can we define greenhouse effect? Greenhouse effect is a warming effect caused by the trapping of energy in the atmosphere. Then number 2, explain how the greenhouse effect occurs, right? Simply, the energy from the sun passes through the atmosphere and warms the surface of the earth, right? That is point number 1. Point number 2, the warmed earth now radiates the energy back into the atmosphere, right? As the energy is radiated back into the atmosphere now, what follows? The energy there reaches what? The greenhouse gases, right? The greenhouse gases now in our atmosphere absorb most of the energy and warming the atmosphere closest to the Earth's surface, right? So meaning what? Without the greenhouse gases, most of the energy would pass out to space and the atmosphere, and our Earth would be much colder, right? So that is all for our activity 1. Now let me give you a quick minute to copy down the corrections. Then after that, we shall proceed with our lesson. Welcome back again, grade 9s. Now let's move on with our lesson, right? So now we are entering global warming, right? So how did we get to global warming out of all this, right? This is because the greenhouse gases, they are there to help to warm up the atmosphere, right? So meaning what? As we always say, too much of a good thing is also bad, right? So meaning what? An excess of these greenhouse gases can lead to global warming, right? So now, if the amount of these gases in the atmosphere increases, it means what? So does the warming effect increase, right? So meaning what? It will lead to the increase in temperatures, right? And the lead to the increase in temperatures is equals to global warming, right? So an increase in the average temperatures of the atmosphere is called global warming, right? This is how we got to global warming now, because we're talking about the greenhouse gases in our atmosphere that help to trap the heat, right? So meaning what? More and more of these gases shall we have. It means what? It means there will be more and more trapping of energy, leading to the increase in temperatures, which is called global warming, right? So now it increases globally, right? And also can lead to other effects that we're going to discuss here, right? So for the last 150 years or so, the average annual temperatures of Earth have risen, right? So scientists, they believe that global warming is caused by an increased amount of greenhouse gases, right? So where do we get these greenhouse gases now? Now, for example, remember when we burn our coal, there's some release of carbon dioxide, right? Which also rises up to the atmosphere, which contributes to the increase in greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Now, there's more and more trapping of energy again, leading to global warming, right? So also carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere by natural processes, right? And it is also released by the burning of fossil fuels like coal and oil in people's homes and factories, and when we generate electricity, right? So let's take it back to our term 2 now to look at the reaction of carbon with oxygen, right? So remember, coal is a form of carbon, right? And it is used as a source of fuel for many different purposes. So we have coal being burnt to brine meat, coal being burnt to generate electricity, coal being burnt also to keep us warm in our homes, right? So, but also it causes air pollution, right? It causes air pollution and other environmental problems, including what? Global warming, right? And yes, it is one of the primary fossil fuels that humans use to generate electricity in our country so that we can power our industries, our activities, and our living spaces. But remember now, during the reaction of carbon or coal as a form of carbon, there's what? There's oxygen again, right? As it undergoes combustion, right? There is oxygen, right? So here is a chemical formula to illustrate what we're talking about here, right? So it is carbon plus oxygen to form carbon dioxide, right? So carbon dioxide now is the result of burning coal, right? The result of burning coal, and it rises up into atmosphere, causing pollution and also contributing to the increase in the greenhouse gases of our atmosphere, right? So also now one of the gases that one of the greenhouse gases is methane, right? And methane now is released by animals when they digest their food altogether. And scientists, they believe that as the number of people on Earth has increased, the amount of fossil fuels burnt and the number of animals reared for food has also increased, right? So meaning what? This can lead to global warming as well, right? Because the more and more animals we have now, also it will lead to the releasing of more methane, right? Also contributing to the greenhouse gases and in turn the increase in temperatures because of the 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 warming effect in our atmosphere, right? So as you can see, as cows are grazing and also digesting their food, there's a lot of releasing of methane, right? And it is released into our atmosphere, which also in turn is going to trap what? The energy radiated back from the earth, right? And also increasing the warming effect, which can lead to the increase in temperatures or our global warming. Right. So global warming also is potentially life-threatening, right? It is potentially life-threatening as it can lead to various factors such as climate change. It can lead to the rising sea levels. It can lead to food shortages and as well as mass extinctions, right? So I want us to discuss these one by one in terms of how much global warming has an effect in the increase of these natural disasters, right? So now, climate change to start with, right? Scientists believe that global warming is causing the climate change patterns to change, right? So it is predicted that some places that are now mild and wet will in time become hotter and drier, right? So meaning what? There's going to be an increase in deserts, right? Deserts are expected to grow larger, right? This is all because of what? Of the increase in temperatures globally, or because of global warming, which is caused by an increase in the greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, right? So also now thunderstorms and tropical cyclones will become more severe, right? Here is a picture of a thunderstorm, right? They will become more and more severe because of what? Of this global warming that leads to climate change as well, right? So also global warming can lead to the rising sea levels, right? Because increased temperatures cause the polar ice caps and glaciers in high mountains to melt. So meaning what? it will increase, or it will cause the sea levels to rise about 3 millimeters per year, right? It is such a small drop, but also it is going to increase year to year to a point where we start experiencing floods as well, right? So if temperatures continue to rise, many low-lying parts of the world will have serious floods each year, and some could remain permanently underwater, right? This is all over a long period of time, but eventually, slowly but surely, it is going there, right? So looking at this example, we have some flooded places here, right? And this picture here comes from a case study in which we had an incident where in KwaZulu-Natal in the previous year, which is 2022, right? So here is the scenario. It says that between 8 April to 12 April, right, record-breaking rains inundated the region around the port city of Durban in KwaZulu-Natal province, right? The floods washed away infrastructure, land, houses, and livelihoods. Sadly, 435 people lost their lives, and to date, 80 are still reported missing. And a total of 19,113 households with 128,743 people have been affected by the disaster. On the night of 18 April 2022, the President of South Africa declared the KZN floods as a national state of disaster to maximize national and provincial coordination to respond to the urgent crisis in affected communities, right? So also, let me remind you, not so long ago, right? 2 days ago, right? We had what? A hailstorm also here in our province, and specific parts such as Midrand, Johannesburg, they got affected, right? We saw on the news, on the social platforms, where cars were damaged, right? Some of the infrastructure being damaged as well, right? This is all because of the increase in the greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, which leads to global warming, which in turn leads to rising sea levels and also climate change, right? So the more and more greenhouse gases that we're going to have, the more also the problems that we are going to encounter in terms of floods, right? Food shortages, and so on. Now, moving on to food shortages, right? Climate change and rising sea levels affect agriculture as well, right? They affect agriculture as crops now are presently grown in one place. They may no longer be able to grow there because of changed climatic conditions of flooded land, right? And already in our country, we are experiencing what? Shortages of food, right? Not only in our country, on earth as a whole, right? We are experiencing shortages of food. So if crop production decreases, many people will face food shortages and hunger. Right. Now, what about mass extinctions, right? Remember, mass extinction is the dying of a species dying of a species and becoming extinct in a short period of time, right? So the Earth's ecosystems are a delicate balance between living and non-living parts of an environment, right? So when the climate changes, these delicate balances I'm talking about here, they are disrupted, difficult to survive. And already in some mountainous regions, animals like foxes and butterflies have moved to higher slopes where it is cooler. So, however, a move is not possible for all species and they risk extinction, right? So, some species may not survive or may not be able to migrate, right? So, meaning what? They are going to be affected and they're going to die because of lack of survival traits. So if one or more species becomes extinct in a short period of time, decreasing the Earth's biodiversity dramatically, so we say that there has been a mass extinction. So now, how can we reduce this global warming, or what can we do now to reduce this global warming to avoid all the environmental impacts that I was talking about here, right? The first thing that we can do there is to afforestate, right? To plant more trees. Why are we planting more trees now? Let's take it back to our photosynthesis, right? Because trees, they take what? They absorb carbon dioxide to photosynthesize. So the more and more trees we have, the more carbon dioxide is absorbed by our plants or our trees for photosynthesis sake, right? Instead of more and more carbon dioxide reaching the atmosphere altogether. Also, we can use public transport. Now, why am I saying so? Let's think of this in this manner, right? Let's say each and every living person on earth has their own car. And we wake up in the morning to start and drive our cars to work, school, or wherever, right? Think of the emissions of the carbon monoxide from the car, right? The more emissions we encounter, the more the atmosphere absorbs and the more of greenhouse gases we are going to have in our atmosphere, right? So also we can use renewable materials, and also we can stop littering, right? These are some of the measures we can use to reduce global warming so that we avoid the environmental impacts. So now, moving on to activity 2, number 1 says define global warming. Number 2, list 3 reasons why global warming is a potentially life-threatening problem on our planet Earth, right? So I'm going to give you 4 minutes for this activity, then after that we shall mark together. Welcome back, grade 9s. Please do not forget your answers, your comments, or any questions on this WhatsApp number 079 Now let's look at the solutions together now. Number one, define global warming. Global warming is an increase in the average temperatures of the atmosphere. Number two, list 3 reasons why global warming is a potentially life-threatening problem on Earth, right? This is why. This is because it leads to climate change, right? It leads to the rise in sea levels, and also it leads to shortages of food, right? Then an extra one, it can lead to mass extinction, right? So let me give you another quick minute to copy down the corrections. Then after that, we're going to move on with our lesson. Welcome back, grade 9s. So now let's move on to give you a chance to ask any questions, comments, or send in those answers, anything regarding this lesson, right? For just 2 minutes on our WhatsApp section. Then after that, if there is nothing to discuss, we are going to wrap up our lesson. Welcome back again, grade 9s. Now it seems like there is no interaction on our WhatsApp section, but please also in the coming lessons, please participate. We are more than willing to help or answer to your questions. Right, now let's summarize what we have learned for today. In today's lesson, our topic was the greenhouse effect, right? So we started off by introducing what? A greenhouse, saying that it is a structure that is made up of glass in which plants are grown, right? So this is the structure that we see, our greenhouse. right? This is because the glass allows what? The energy from the sun to pass through, but does not allow energy out again, right? Making the plants to grow well. Are we together? So now, we said that also on Earth now we have our own natural greenhouse effect, right? Also, we have the sun's UV rays entering from the atmosphere or passing through the atmosphere, right? Then also the energy being trapped, and we have sustainable heat, right? So this is how the greenhouse effect happens on Earth. Firstly, the energy from the sun passes through the atmosphere and warms the surface of the Earth. Then afterwards, the warmed Earth radiates energy back into the atmosphere, right? The warmed Earth radiates energy back into the atmosphere, right? When it does that now, it reaches the atmosphere, it gets what? These greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. These greenhouse gases now they absorb most of this energy. As they absorb most of this energy, they warm the atmosphere closest to the Earth's surface, right? Preventing most of the energy being lost out to space, right? So it means what? Without these greenhouse gases, most of the energy would just pass out to space and the atmosphere would be much colder, right? So the gases of the atmosphere are similar now to the class of the greenhouse, right? Their role is to trap energy, making the air warmer than it would otherwise be, right? So here is what we're talking about here, right? In picture form, as you can see, this is you and I, right? On planet Earth, as you are seated there on your desk, as someone is walking around, as someone is still sleeping probably, but everyone here on Earth, right? This is us, right? And this is our planet Earth. And then this, the white color here is our atmosphere, right? Then our sun from this point. What happens here now is what we were talking about, right? The sun's UV rays, they pass through the atmosphere. As they pass through the atmosphere, they are insulating the earth, right? Then the energy now is kept or in position at earth, right? Then later on, that energy is going to be radiated back to the atmosphere. As it is radiated back into the atmosphere, what happens? In the atmosphere, we find our greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, such as methane, and as well as water vapor. These gases, they do what? They trap all the energy that is radiated back from the earth within the atmosphere, right? Keeping us warm, right? Keeping us warm at night mostly, right? To keep us warm and so that we do not lose much energy into space, right? So this is why we say that the greenhouse effect is there to sustain life, right? To make what? The earth and the atmosphere as warm as possible to sustain life. So we said that also an increase in the number of greenhouse gases can lead to global warming, right? So these gases, their function is to warm the atmosphere by trapping the energy, right? So the more and more greenhouse gases we have now, or the increase in greenhouse gases is going to cause what we call global warming, right? It is going to cause what? Global warming, right? And global warming is an increase in the average temperatures of the atmosphere. So what leads to this increase in greenhouse gases, right? Like burning of fossil fuels, burning coal when we're generating electricity, when we're having fires at home, right? The emissions from our cars exhaust, right? These are all contributing factors to global warming, right? Methane also released from animals as they are digesting their food is also what? A contributing factor to global warming, right? So global warming also is a life-threatening problem, right? as it causes what? An rise in sea levels, climate change, food shortages, and as well as mass extinction. So how can we reduce this global warming now, right? We can afforestate, right, or the process of afforestation by planting more and more trees. This is because trees undergo photosynthesis, right? They are going to use most of the carbon dioxide to photosynthesize, right? So hence it is a way to reduce global warming. Also, we can use public transport to reduce the number of cars on the road and as well as to reduce what? The carbon emissions from our cars, right? And also we can use renewable materials or renewable resources, and as well as we can stop littering as one of the ways to reduce global warming, right? So now, I hope you have enjoyed today's lesson. In the following lesson now, we are going to be discussing the birth of a star, the life of a star, and as well as the death of a star, right? So our umbrella topic here is the birth of a star. Then we are going to incorporate what? The life of a star and as well as the death of a star. So with hope that you have enjoyed today's lesson, let's meet again in another lesson where you have studied this following topic. And from me to you, thank you and goodbye.